This morning, you step outside and find an anglerfish waiting beside the bus stop. Its teeth point inward like a cage. A blue lure swings above its head, even in daylight. Across the street, a giant isopod is climbing out of a storm drain while a glassy squid presses itself against a shop window, trying to understand the sun. But the real answer is far stranger than a city suddenly filled with monsters. Because the animals at the bottom of the ocean are not just weird versions of familiar life. They are the survivors of a world built on crushing pressure, endless darkness, near-freezing water, and food that may fall from above only once in weeks. If they could somehow live on land with humans, your planet would not simply gain new neighbors. It would reveal how fragile the surface world really is. First, there is a problem almost every deep-sea animal would face before it took a single step. It would not be the air. It would be the missing ocean pressing on its body. At the deep-sea floor, pressure rises by roughly 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters of water. Down where many abyssal animals live, the force surrounding them can be hundreds of times greater than the pressure you feel right now. NOAA ocean scientists point out that animals adapted to this pressure can suffer serious metabolic trouble when brought upward. Their proteins, membranes, and chemical reactions are tuned to being squeezed. You might imagine a deep-sea fish exploding at the surface. That is not quite the right picture. The bigger danger is that its whole internal machinery was designed for a different physics. Much like a submarine built to resist enormous pressure would not make sense as a house in a desert. So the premise needs one impossible gift. Every abyssal animal is suddenly rebuilt to handle air, gravity, warmth, and ordinary pressure without dying. Their bodies can walk, crawl, or float on land. Their deep-sea instincts stay exactly the same. Then the strange part begins. The first animals to reach your streets would probably not be the giant predators from horror films. They would be the opportunists. Amphipods, isopods, worms, sea cucumbers, and scavenging fishes have spent millions of years locating anything edible that drifts into darkness. In the ocean, a dead whale can become an entire temporary city. In a human city, every rubbish bin, compost heap, roadkill, and landfill would become a beacon. You would not notice them arriving one by one. You would notice the cleanup. An enormous armored isopod, built like a pill bug with prehistoric confidence, would investigate a discarded sandwich wrapper. Sleeper sharks and hagfish would appear wherever decay collects. Hagfish are especially unsettling because they can release vast quantities of slime when threatened. Underwater, that slime becomes a defensive cloud. On a city pavement, it could turn one blocked street into a glistening obstacle course. Would it be dangerous? Sometimes. But it could also be useful. Your surface world wastes extraordinary amounts of food and organic material. The deep ocean is a masterclass in treating every fallen scrap as precious. Animals that evolved in scarcity would make human abundance look absurd. Municipalities might build controlled feeding corridors and waste processing zones, not because the animals are cute, but because hungry scavengers do not respect property lines. Then come the animals that have learned to make light. On land, bioluminescence feels magical because your nights are usually dark enough for a firefly to seem like a tiny lantern. In the deep sea, light is language, camouflage, alarm system, bait, and weapon. Bioluminescence means producing light through chemistry. According to research led by Danielle DeLeo and Andrea Quattrini, animals in an ancient coral lineage may have been using it at least 540 million years ago. That means glowing was old before dinosaurs were even imaginable, and it was never just decoration. Edie Witter, a deep-sea explorer who has studied this hidden light, has described the ocean as a place where light can work like a burglar alarm. A small animal attacked by a predator may flash brightly, attracting something larger that could attack the attacker. Imagine that strategy brought into a park after sunset. A frightened shrimp-like creature flares blue, another flashes green. Within seconds, every predator nearby knows there is movement. Nightlife would change first. Then sleep would change. Streetlights would become almost irrelevant in districts where glowing worms, squid, jellyfish, and fish drifted through the air on their new land-adapted bodies. You might look from your bedroom window and see a dark field pulsing with blue signals. You would not know whether you were seeing courtship, panic, camouflage, or dinner. Could you learn the code? Eventually, perhaps. Humans already study animal signals, but a deep-sea signal is often shaped by an environment you cannot feel. A flash that means safety in black water may mean something entirely different under a bright moon. The confusion would be mutual. Many animals evolved to use blue light because blue travels far through seawater. Under a yellow street lamp or a red traffic signal, their carefully evolved messages could become distorted. For some of them, land would be a world full of visual noise. And then there are the hunters. The anglerfish would become famous overnight. It would look less like a fish and more like a nightmare somebody designed during a power outage. Broad mouth, hinged teeth, soft body, and a glowing lure extending from its head. But the lure is not proof that it is evil. It is proof that waiting can be more efficient than chasing. In the deep sea, calories are rare. Chasing prey recklessly can cost more energy than the meal provides. That lesson would land hard in a world of humans. You are surrounded by systems that try to pull your attention with tiny lures. A notification, a headline, a flashing sail, a glowing screen. The anglerfish does not need to chase everything. It makes one small point of light impossible to ignore. If it lived beside you, you would see a biological version of the attention economy every time its lure began to glow. But it would not be the only hunter with an unfair advantage. Dragonfish have evolved some of the strangest visual systems in the ocean. Research by Sonka Johnson, Karen Osborne, and their colleagues has shown how deep-sea animals use darkness, pigments, and special light to hide or hunt. Some dragonfish can produce red light, which is unusual in the deep sea because most animals there cannot see red. That gives the dragonfish something close to a private flashlight. On land, this would feel like cheating. You would be walking through a dark garden, certain that nothing could see you, while a small fish-like hunter scans the grass with a color your eyes barely register. Deep-sea camouflage would also become unnerving. Karen Osborne and her team found that some ultra-black fish absorb nearly all incoming light. They do not merely look dark. Their skin traps light so effectively that their outline can almost vanish. In the ocean, that helps them disappear from glowing prey. On land, it would make a black fish-shaped animal on a nighttime wall look like a hole cut into reality. Would people panic? At first, yes. But panic is not the final story. Humans adapt astonishingly quickly to animals once they become predictable. Pigeons became part of cities. Rats became part of cities. Foxes became part of cities. Given enough time, children would name the neighborhood Octopus. Scientists would map safe routes for nocturnal glowing species. Cafes would advertise windows overlooking approved abyssal gardens. The true upheaval would come from animals that do not think like individual animals at all. Take siphonophores. They can look like one long, delicate creature, but many are colonies of specialized bodies working together. One part may catch food, another may move, another may reproduce. In the deep ocean, the line between one creature and many creatures can become blurry. Your instinct is to look at an animal and ask, where is its brain? Where is itself? A siphonophore makes that question wobble. If a land-adapted colony stretched across a building facade or drifted over a road, you might be looking at a living society that began as one animal but became a coordinated network. It would force you to notice that human individuality is also less simple than it feels. Your body contains trillions of microbes. Your food, language, work, and safety are built through other people. You feel singular. You survive collectively. At the deepest extreme, there are the hydrothermal vent animals. These communities live near cracks in the seafloor where hot, mineral-rich fluids emerge from Earth. They are often described as ecosystems without sunlight, but that phrase can hide the important part. Their food web begins with microbes that use chemical energy. Chemosynthesis is the process of building energy-rich food from chemicals rather than from sunlight. Tube worms, clams, and other vent animals depend on partnerships with these microbes. If those animals reached land with their microbial partners, they would not need a forest or a field. They would need chemistry. Industrial sites, geothermal regions, mine tailings, and polluted zones might suddenly become valuable habitat. That would make people uncomfortable for a good reason. You would see life finding a way to use the very chemical landscapes you tried to ignore. A ventworm colony beside a geothermal plant would not be a symbol of nature returning to normal. It would be a reminder that life does not share your idea of normal. Could they help clean damaged places? Possibly, but not automatically. The microbes around vents can transform chemicals in remarkable ways, and scientists study them for clues about biotechnology and the origins of life. But an ecosystem is not a toolkit. Bring one species into a new place, and it changes the whole web around it. The first rule of this impossible migration would be the same rule you keep forgetting with real invasive species. An animal does not have to be vicious to be disruptive. The surface would be especially vulnerable because it is so bright, warm, and crowded. Most deep-sea animals live in cold water. Many rely on slow metabolisms and low-energy lifestyles. Even with magical bodies that tolerate land, they might still prefer shade, basements, caves, subway tunnels, and the undersides of bridges. Your cities would grow a second ecology below eye level. Day belongs to humans, birds, and insects. Night belongs to the creatures from below. Then you would realize that some of them are not interested in your cities at all. The abyss is enormous. The deep sea covers much of the planet, and yet it remains far less familiar than the streets outside your home. Ocean explorers keep finding animals that do not fit the pictures you carry in your head. The land migration would not be a parade of known species. It would be an arrival of unknown ones, each carrying an evolutionary answer to a question you never thought to ask. How do you find a mate where there is no light? How do you eat when meals fall from the sky only by accident? How do you hide when there is nowhere to hide except darkness itself? Those answers would walk into your world. You would see a sea cucumber slowly crossing a playground and think it looks ridiculous. But it represents an evolutionary lineage that survived conditions your body cannot tolerate for minutes. You would see an anglerfish lure glowing by a doorway and think it is terrifying. But it is simply a solution to hunger in a place where chasing is wasteful. You would see a blackfish that seems to erase its own outline and realize that vision is not just about seeing more. Sometimes it is about preventing others from seeing you. The deepest change would happen inside your mind. Humans often imagine nature as a green place. Trees, grass, birdsong, sunlight on water. That is only the thin upper skin of Earth. Below it is a larger world where sunlight ends, pressure rises, and life keeps inventing itself anyway. If the animals from that world could live beside you, you would stop treating the ocean floor as empty space beneath the real planet. It was always part of your home. And tomorrow, when you step outside and find an anglerfish waiting beside the bus stop, you would no longer see a monster from another world. You would see a neighbor from the part of Earth you forgot was alive.